Hello and welcome back, guys. So today we are going to look into module 5, which is going to be VDS, virtual distributed switches. As we already covered standard switches and VM kernel switches, this topic is going to be focused on the distributed virtual switches and the benefits around it. Okay, so we are doing module 5 now, obviously very close to the advanced topics now. So as I said, we covered standard virtual switches and how to create standard virtual switches. Now we'll be looking into distributed virtual switches and how to add distributed virtual switches to your ESX host. So the configuration of VDS, which we call, or virtual distributed switches, is centralized to the vCenter. So for configuring the distributed virtual switch, it's very important for us to have the vCenter available. And if you want to move it from one distributed switch to other, because these virtual distributed switches are also based on version numbers. So we have a distributed virtual switch version 5.5, and we have a distributed virtual switch version 6 or something like that. We'll see that when we go on the next demo session. So the ESXi, it started from ESX 4.x, so they have a different versions for ESX5 and different versions for ESX6. There are some fundamental differences in there, but from the point of view of how we would use it in daily life, it's nothing different than how you create a it's nothing different than how a standard virtual switch works. The only benefit you'll get is a standard virtual switch. Basically, as I said, you need to have the same naming convention and the same characters, if it's capital or lowercase, or else it will start creating problems for vMotion and stuff like that. So all that is taken away because it's going to be managed by vCenter centrally. So you create a virtual switch, distributed virtual switch, and on the top level, and then you basically add all the VLANs which you need to add, and then to that VLANs, if I draw it in a pattern, you'll get a little bit of understanding. So what we are doing is we are basically taking it from a different point of view. So we basically, on the vCenter, we create this switch. We call it, let's say for example, traffic, VM traffic, maybe VM traffic, VDS 1. Okay, now the thing is, this is just a container. In this one, you create port groups again. So you create a port group for UAT traffic again, maybe 500. Okay, and then you will create one for 600, so on and so forth. So what you do is, this is an entity on its own. It is basically, you are just created it and it's sat there doing nothing. It's a bit like you have that virtual switch, standard switch there, but you didn't apply it to a VNIC, so it's not working, right? It's something like that. So on here, then what you do is you then basically apply or connect it to your ESX host. So basically, you then will connect this virtual distributed switch to this ESX host and to this ESX host. Now, to be able to do that, you need to have free network adapters there to be able to assign it to. So if you don't have free network adapters, then obviously you can't, right? You need this switch to pass the traffic. So to pass this traffic, you need to have network cards, right? So that's what you would need. If you don't have network cards, then obviously you need to free something up. If you're already using it for virtual standard switches, and if it's maybe hot standby, then we can release it from hot standby and then basically use that one, maybe, those sort of things. So let's look into that, how we do it. Now, let's go back to our lab. Now, so far we have touched all these tabs. We have touched the VMware cluster, templates, and storage. Now this is the last tab which we never touched so far. So this is our networking tab. Okay, so what are we going to do here is basically we are going to create, say for example, if I'm using this one as a test, I can see there is UAT VLANs created here. Okay, let's use this one. So you can see that we have so many UAT VLANs created here. I think last time for demo we used VLAB 50. So what we'll do is basically we will create a new distributed switch here. Okay, so to do that we will right click and we go to distributed switches, and then we'll create a distributed switch. vDS VM traffic. Okay, this is for VM traffic. Now it's basically going to be unique for each data center. So basically I have selected data center 50 and that's what it's selecting at the moment. We can delete it again and you can practice it again, Prashant. So see, this is the versions I was talking about. So specify a distributed switch version. So virtual distributed switch also has versions. So as I said, it has version 6 and then 6.6 is there, which is for ESX6 and later. Version 6.4 you have to use that. If you have 6.5 running, you can't use this one, right? So you need to create the switch according to your environment. If your environment is having a mixture of ESX 6.5 still running, then the new virtual distributed switch which you are going to create is going to be this one, because you need still compatibility with that, right? Yeah. So it says new features and enhancement.
Can you repeat that compatibility, please?
Yeah. So आपके environment में, if your environment in your ESX environment where you're working, if you have ESX hosts which are 6.5 and 6.7 and version 7, so we have a mixture of different flavor of ESX which we have, like 6.5 bhi chal raha, 6.7 bhi chal raha, and then we have version 7 as well. So just don't go and create a virtual switch for version 7. Okay, you need to try and understand that you still have version 6.5 running, ESX 6.5. So this switch need to be compatible in that cluster which you are data center which you are creating. You need to create a switch which is compatible to all the clusters in there. So you might say, oh, I have one cluster which is having 6.5 and one cluster 6.7 and one cluster 7. So I don't need I will only use it on cluster 7. But who knows, if you want to use it, you can use it for the cluster which is running 6.5 as well. Remember, this is actually created on the top level, on the data center level. You're not doing it on the cluster level at all. So that is the thinking which you need to have in your mind, because this is on a vCenter level. This virtual switch can be used on all the hosts which is there, and historically if you have got 6.5 host in there, and that's what you would prefer, then you will need to have a 6.5 switch. Later on there are obviously ways how to migrate it to version 6.6 or version 7. That can be done very easily. It's not a big deal. Okay, so as it says, distributed version 7, it has flexibility, so it can be working with NSX distributed port groups as well. Mac learning is there from this, and a port group enhancement is there from 6.5. So these are the new features which were added at every level. Like this, on this virtual distributed group version 6.6 basically gave it option for Mac learning, and for 7 it gives NSX distributed port groups is added in here. So that is why you need to be able to decide which one you want. Now is it clear, Sonia, why I said which one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go next. Let's see 6.5 for now. Okay, and now you need to say how many uplinks you have. Now what is uplink again? Uplink is your network ports which we just talked about, which is basically going to send the traffic to your production network, right? So you have to select how many number of uplinks you have, and then the name. Now notice the name is changed here. So we can say this is a default name created. So we can say distributed port group VM traffic. Okay, and then click next. Actually number of uplinks 4 is too much. Let's say 2 for now. So it depends. आपके ESX host में अगर 4 uplink available है, then you can give 4 to it. Okay, if you have only 2 network card available, then you say 2. Okay, so now that's created, and notice I didn't actually add any networks or any vNICs or anything like that, nothing. Like, remember when we created the virtual standard virtual switch, we didn't do anything like that either. We just created a standard virtual switch. Later on we added it to VM network, like ESXi or whatever it is we decided later on. So now all I have done is created a virtual switch, distributed virtual switch called D switch VM traffic. I like to call it DV switch, distributed virtual port group, and on the name as well, let's name it DV. So we got it named how I want it now. Okay, and 2, and there you go. So DV switch VM traffic, and then the port group name is DV port group VM traffic. Nice, finish, and that's it. Now what happens? Notice, there you go. Here you'll notice at the bottom you have a VM traffic port group, and you also have another one created here, and it has obviously got some numbers along with it. That's something which is done by default. So it basically is the VLAN trunking, where you can trunk from 0 to 5,000, but he is basically restricted it to, is it 4,000 or 5,000 VLANs we can have?
I think 4096.
4096. Okay, so that's the maximum. I guess obviously we are not talking about VXLAN or anything here, so we are only talking about generic VLANs, which is like 4000, 4096 as you said. Okay, so what do we do then? So there are two things there. It's missing. It's not even having ESX host connected, right? It's missing so many things. So how do we do that? So we have the host here. Nothing is added to this virtual port group, and no VMs is connected to it, right? So how do we then add those things? Now before we do that, we need to make sure that our ESX host is having enough port groups. Okay, so we are going to go back to our data center, which is 50, where we are working at the moment. And then we need to identify whether we have enough network ports available first. So obviously this would be first, this would be something which would be done first, right? So I can see that it has 4 NICs, okay, which is good. So I can at least now free 2 of them, and then use that for this. So vSwitch 0 and vSwitch 1 are used here. So vNIC 0 and 1 is used already. So 2 should be for VM traffic, which I will find on the virtual switch here, because we were playing with virtual switches so far. Okay, so standard virtual switch is here, and it is using VMNIC 0 as expected. And then we have switch 1, which is basically ESXi, and it's saying it's not connected, which is fine. And then we have these 2. So what I would do, and this is basically using standard virtual switch, right? So what I have to do is, if this was in production, then I would have basically just taken off one of them and added to our distributed virtual group, and then later on, once it is when I move all the traffic from VMs from standard virtual switch to distributed virtual switch, then I will release the other one, making sure nothing is running here. And there's an easy way to check it. See, if the VMs are running here, you'll see it here, and make sure nothing is running here. All of these should be saying 0 0 0. Then this switch becomes obsolete for me, because everything is migrated. Then I will basically just move the last NIC and move it there. Okay, that's a process of migration we are talking about. But say for example, if it's a vanilla environment how we are building, and we don't have all this configuration, and we are building a distributed switch, you will have these 2 VMNIC 2 and 3 free already. Okay, for us we need to make it free. So how do we make it free? So we go to edit, no, wrong way, physical adapters, manage physical adapters, and then we just select that and then remove it. Okay, and as we are talking about a vanilla site, I'm going to remove the other one as well, because we don't have any production traffic. This VM is powered off as well. If it was having, then I would leave one there anyway. Okay, I would leave one there. What happened there? Yeah, there you go. Do bhi nikal diye. Now we have 2 which are free. Now for this particular host, I'm going to add this host to our distributed virtual switch. Now this bit which we just did is purely because last week's lab which we did was to add the vSwitch in a port group, right? That's why we did that bit to remove those network adapters. But if you have two free already, then you don't need to do that. So to add a ESX host to this port group, or to start using this port group, what you would do is right click and then not on this level. Basically we'll be working on this level, because we are going to add a host on the top level, right? This is our distributed virtual switch VM traffic. So we go here, right click, and then we say add and manage ESX host. So we can manage, if there's something already which is added, we can add and remove them, or we can add them directly. So click on add, click next. Okay, click on add host, and then you can see our host there. Select that, click OK. So that's added there. Click next. Now you will get the option to choose the adapters. Now you can notice that I have already made these two free and they are not connected to any virtual switch. So originally it was virtual switch 2, we removed it from there, right? So now we have this one and this one which are free. So I can select one. Like if we were doing it one at a time, I can select 2, and this might be still used on the other virtual switch. I can only select one, and I can say assign uplink. Okay, assign uplink, click OK, and that's it, that's assigned. Okay, you can see it here. Okay, but over here this is also free. So for the purpose of this lab, we are going to add both of them together. Okay, uplink 2, because we already gave in the virtual distributed switch how many uplink it asked. I said it had 4 and I changed it to 2. So uplink 1 and uplink 2. So uplink 1 ku I assigned VMNIC 2, and uplink 2 I am going to assign this VMNIC 3. So click on OK, and there you go. You have uplink 1 VMNIC 2, uplink 2 VMNIC 3. Both are there and they are connected to a virtual distributed switch. Click next. Manage kernel adapters. Now there is an option to manage VM kernel adapters as well, but I normally manage it with virtual standard switches. So it is where it is. I don't want to touch it. Okay, so I can assign VM kernel adapters to these new distributed switches, and I can manage it from there as well, and iSCSI traffic as well. But by default I would say always ESX traffic management ku leave it on virtual switch, because who knows, tomorrow if you don't have, if you have issues with vCenter, you can't manage it. Then you can't you need to do so many things to undo what you did then. And then there is also an option of migrating virtual machines network. So say for example, if I left this one on the standard switch, at this point I would migrate it here. Okay, and then click on next, and then finish. So you will not have any, you will have a little bit of outage, like how you'll drop a ping, right? And then it will move from one port to another. But notice over here we didn't create any port groups, so we still need to create port groups and everything else how we do. But the advantage here you'll get is you'll only do it once here, and you just keep on adding the ESX host. So we added 51, and then let's power on 52, and then we can add 52 as well. So though the advantage here is, if I am creating 30 VLANs, I can script it and create 30 VLAN on this distributed port group, or I can do it manually and do it right first time. Okay, and here I don't need to worry about having a typo. If the typo is there, it's there forever, but it will not affect me on vMotion and all that, because all those hosts are going to use the same virtual distributed switch. Now if I click on ESX host, you can see that this host is connected here. Yeah, and if I go on the host, now you will notice that we will have distributed virtual switches here and standard virtual switches. So standard 2 is not having any ports, and distributed is having those uplinks, right? Now still the VM is not connected because we don't have a port group. We just assigned the uplinks to the ESX host and we just moved it here. Okay, so if we were doing production migration, then first thing you would do is create all the VLANs which you need here. So how would we check what is the port group which was required? First go back and check what was the port group which was created. Not sure whether it will show it now because we migrated it. Might be blank because we migrated it and it doesn't have any port group. Yeah, it's blank, as you can see. There's nothing to add there because this new one we didn't create any, right? Okay, so quickly what we are going to do now is we are going to create the port group for us to be able to assign it to this particular one. To do that, we'll go back to our networking tab, right click, so this is the configuration for this switch which we just created. Okay, VLANs, NIC teaming, failover. So at the moment both of them are on active. We can do similar setup how we did it on standard, put this one in standby. So this configuration, just remember how way to do it and how to do it. So failover, NIC teaming यहाँ पर है देखो, and then you click on OK. So now, as I said, we will be creating port groups. So ideally, as soon as you create the virtual distributed switch, you can go in and create your port groups. So go and create your port groups like this. Create port group. So distributed virtual port group. I can say maybe we will call it UAT, my favorite, VLAN 500 VM traffic, something like that. Okay, and then copy the name. Whoops, copy the name, click on next, leave all these settings as it is. Number of ports is 8. It will keep on increasing it by default, don't need to worry about it. You can, however, some people say Epernel no binding, that is only used for VM kernel adapters. Okay, so this is why we don't want to use VM kernel adapters. So there you go, that is your first port group which is added and you can see it there. Now let's keep on adding multiple of them. Port group, new. If you are migrating all the VLANs which is on standard virtual switch, you first create it here. Okay, you create it here and then you, when they are created, it becomes easy for you to migrate it as well. So if it does really have a VLAN ID, this is where you specify it like 501 and then click next and then done. But at the moment stick to none because we don't have in our environment. So this is, I just wanted to show you how to add VLAN IDs, that's all. And then now we are going to create some for our production traffic, say for example so for production traffic, obviously it has to be a different VLAN, so we will call it prod VLAN, and production VLAN starts from 1000 for example. Yeah, did I give 10,000? No, 1000. Chalo, sahi hai. So that's all it is, guys. And now the port groups are done and the only thing remaining is to go back to the VM, as it's not in production, and this is just a environment which we are basically building up. Go back to our VM, right click on the ESX host, on the virtual machine you want to assign the distributed VLAN, click on networking, edit settings, and then you can see it has automatically picked up VLAN 500. I didn't need to do anything because it knew previously it was on a similar sort of VLAN, right? But if I want to change, go browse, you can see your standard VLANs at the bottom, and you can see your distributed VLANs over here. So you can, some people may say, okay, it needs to be changed to production, this is not a UAT server. So you just basically say, okay, fine, no problem. What is your VLAN, what is your port group which you need to assign it to? You say 1000, say 1000, okay, and then you just need to tell them to re-IP it for that particular VLAN and subnet, and then click on OK. And that's how easy it is. Now if you go to here, just to validate our theory, we assign it to VLAN 1000, and we click on VLAN 1000, it will show all the virtual machines which are connected on VLAN 1000. So that's a quick session on distributed virtual switches, guys. I want you to remove, first of all, the standard switches which you have. It's an easy way to do it, right? How we remove the adapters, I showed you in the beginning of the session, and then basically create the new ones. Okay, create the virtual distributed switches. Naming convention is not too important. I'm not too fussed about it. You will follow whatever your production environment dictates you, but for the purpose of your lab, it is good to be tidy and good to look consistent when I do my YouTube videos as well. So I would suggest you to follow, if possible, follow the standards which I'm giving you, like give VD, port group, and then prod, then VLAN ID, then VM traffic, or whatever it is. But yeah, follow a standard. Don't just write random characters or your name or anything like that. These are VLANs, right? So that's why you need to talk in, you need to be able to see and understand which network it is connecting. So I can say easily from here, this is a production, this is a distributed virtual group for production network, and it's on this VLAN ID, and it's for our virtual machine traffic. That's what I mean. Two more, I think I have half a minute. Any questions, anyone? Or shall we restart the session for lab and sanitize the lab for doing this session? And people who don't want to do the previous session, they can do that as well. I think I have around about very less time now for where's my YouTube, where's my, I missed my Zoom. There you are. Zoom meeting.
If that's all you have to cover, Ibrahim, I'll do the labs on my end later.
Okay.
If that's.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So, any questions, guys? Any questions? So this is again, you need to explore these options when you do this, right? When I say explore the options, so we have 10 more minutes. Let's wrap it up now. So what I mean by that is, say for example you're running a production environment, you need to understand that, okay, what are you doing? Agar production environment may say let's talk through another scenario with Sonia's lab here. Okay, so Sonia, you have these standard virtual switches, right? To do it as a migration, piece of migration for an existing traffic, production traffic which is running on standard switches, I would first create the distributed switch, then create the port groups which are available on the standard switch, like for the VLAN 200, 201 and 202. Does it make sense, Sonia?
Yeah.
And then after that, then I start the process of migrating, adding the ESX host. I will not add the ESX host until I add the port groups. So first thing is you create your distributed port group. Okay. Second, you add your distributed virtual switch. You create your distributed virtual switch first, then add your distributed port groups within there, how we did for VLAN 1000 and all those. So all those VLAN are now available for you. Then when you add the ESX host, it will ask you at the fourth step, do you want to migrate these virtual machine? You just say yes, and it will automatically pick up that the VLAN IDs and names jo similar rehte, and then it will basically migrate the those from there to that. Did you get my point?
Yeah.
So that's how it works. So do it like that if you want to. So over here we did it in a way where we are doing as a vanilla environment, where our greenfield, where we don't have anything like that. But over here you can do that. You can basically create a virtual port group and assign it the VLANs which you have already created, and to if you don't have the luxury of having 4 like spare network adapters, you have one already used here for standard switch, one for VM iSCSI traffic, right? And you have 2 here. So just release one at this point. Still say when you're creating the port group, distributed port group, you still say that you want 2, but in the time of migration you don't need to assign 2 of them. You just need one to be able to migrate, right? So release this one and assign it to the uplink 2, and then release the migrate it fully. Migrate all your VMs. Once they are done, then you go back here and then you check any VMs are running in any of these ports, which is basically 0 at this point. Then what you can do, you can go back here, release this port, and then you can go back in here, and then you can say how we did just now. There is an option to manage, right? So you go back in here, virtual switches, and then I can say right click and add ESX host. अब यहाँ पर add नहीं करना है, the host is already added, right? I can say manage now. I can say next, and then I can add the host 51 again, because this is what I want to manage. Okay, and then I can decide if I want to basically add another physical network adapter. This is where basically I will assign uplink बोल के कर देता हूँ यहाँ से, क्योंकि at that point it will only have ये this one connected, the ESX VM NIC 3 uplink 2 को assign रहता, तो VM this uplink will be free at that time, right? So if it is free, you can basically, it will be like this, right?
Yeah.
So what you do is you basically select that and then click on uplink and then assign it to this one and then click OK, and then you migrated the second one as well, and then click on next again, and this is where you migrate virtual machines. Everything is migrated, there is nothing there, so it's not showing anything. Or you can do it manually later. Migrate virtual machine network को select करे तो बताएगा वो. If you don't select that, it will not show you that, and then you can do it manually later on. So maybe you want some downtime to do it because you'll have a network blip. You can decide to do it on a later date. You don't need to do all the migration at the same time. That's what I want to tell you. Get it, everyone? Rupranjan and Prashant, I think this was a really good class because it basically covered a really important topic, and usually in production we use virtual distributed switches anyway. And see how easy it is. If I add the other ESX host, I don't need to create all these port groups again. All I am doing is adding the ESX host from here, right? Add ESX host, or say for example tomorrow I build a new host. All I do is management traffic assign कर देता हूँ, host profile assign कर apply कर देता हूँ, जिससे जो है it is consistent in the environment, like NTP server and all those details, storage and all this is assigned. And all I do is for adding port group, I just say add here and then click next, and then basically add the host here, the 52 maybe. Yeah, 51 is done, 52 I will click on add host and I will add 52 here. समझ रहे ना बात? 52 is actually not even powered on at the moment, so it's basically powered off, so that's not showing me at the moment. Does it make sense? Any questions? You can come back to me. Thanks for watching, guys. So if you are struggling with your environment, you can reach out to me, and I do have an option of giving access to my virtual labs for practice. If you are struggling with resources or you can't set up a lab, you can reach out to me. There's a link over here, agileops.co.uk, on my website, which is online VMware and Cisco labs. Check that out and email me. My email address is ibrahim@agileops.co.uk, and I hope you enjoyed today's session for virtual distributed switches. I sure enjoyed it. And question of the day today: what is the advantages of distributed virtual switches? Comment on below and let me know. And as I just said, if you want to check out some blog posts, my blog is agileops.co.uk, and you can reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Ibrahim Quraishi. Send me a direct message and say hello. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the bell button for the notification so you get new updates every time I post a new video. Enjoy watching and keep sharing. Cheers. Bye.